Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dreamcast. Hope everyone's having a wonderful, positive, energy-filled day, and you are at peace wherever you are. I'm doing pretty well today. I just saw one of my favorite movies, Interstellar, today in IMAX. Um, that movie came out a decade ago, and so it was re-released in theaters. And I watch it at least twice a year. Um, I like it that much. I love it that much. But seeing it in IMAX was amazing. I could feel every aspect of that movie. I felt like I was transported to space for 2 hours and 49 minutes or whatever it was. Anyway, I highly recommend you go see that movie. It's has emotion. It has science. It has mental stimulation. It's just all around great movie. So today we're going to be talking about grace, not the kind that you say before you eat, when you pray. This grace is what we extend to others and what we extend to ourselves. So let's start with what grace means. So grace is defined as goodwill, not the thrift shop. But no, doing good, to honor or credit someone or something by your presence, to show kindness, compassion, and mercy to others in a way that is undeserved or unearned. And that's a really important aspect of grace because it can be very easy. It generally is very easy to give somebody something that we think they deserve. But when they don't deserve it, that's when the real test of grace is extended to us because it's not easy to do. And so a lot of times we might not do it. Today we're going to talk about how we can do that. And when we think about the definition of grace being meaning to honor or give credit to someone, honor is a very high word. When we think of someone we honor, it's to really hold them in very high regard. And so to offer grace to someone in that way is to really give them, put them in a high place. And again, that's very difficult to do when we don't think they deserve it, or they don't deserve it per se. But yeah, grace involves treating others with dignity, with respect, and understanding, and again, all in uh, a time of not really, um, I don't even, it's not when people don't deserve it, but it's even when they don't deserve it. I was phrasing that incorrectly. We're not just doing it when they don't deserve it, but it's even when, because we can offer grace when people deserve it and when they don't. But it's just something else that we can do even when that is the case. Anyway, um, grace is something that allows us to accept others without condition, to create a safe space for vulnerability, for growth. It's hard to be unconditional, and I don't um, think that's always even something actual, because we all have conditions and things that we want, standards and expectations, and those tend to be conditional. But grace allows us to really allow someone the freedom to be themselves, to have an environment where they can share their true selves, to not have fear of judgment or rejection. And this in turn allows us to create a deep connection with them and increase our empathy and also develop a greater sense of community. Grace isn't easy. It helps us to let go of resentment that over time can consume us and cause emotional strain, physical pain from the emotional and mental strain, and it can often strain our relationships. When we are graceful, we can release those negative emotions tied to all the things that we may have been holding in uh, towards a person. And it frees us from that burden of being resentful towards them. When we choose to let go of being angry and resentful, we allow space for more positive aspects and attributes like forgiveness, personal growth, healing. I don't know if you've ever heard it be said that a lot of times when we're angry with someone, we're the ones that suffer, because they can go on with their lives, but we're holding on to so much pain and so much anger and that resentment that it tends to weigh us down. And so by letting that go, being graceful, we can release that from us. And that really helps us in many, many ways. One of those ways is it impacts our mental health for the better. When we are graceful, choosing to forgive and let go of negative emotions, our stress is reduced, anxiety is reduced, depression is reduced, which thus improves our overall well-being. We're more resilient, and we have a greater ability to cope with challenges. Um, Being graceful helps us to learn how to be more empathetic, um, by putting ourselves in another person's shoes and trying to understand why they may have done something, and then being understanding of that. We again can create and foster a deeper connection with them. And we're more compassionate, more supportive, and more loving towards them. And all those words, if you notice, love, compassion, support, they're all positive things. So while there may be some negativity in why we're being graceful towards them, it does create a positive outcome. Being graceful helps us, of course, in forgiveness, because and not just forgiveness, but a ripple effect of forgiveness. Because when we're forgiving towards others, hopefully in turn, when we need someone else's grace, they will also be forgiving towards us, and thus it creates a beautiful circle of um, forgiveness and positivity and healing for everyone. Our grace sets an example and sets a tone for how people will deal with us. And so, again, you've created a culture of forgiveness, empathy, and compassion, and they can thrive in that kind of environment. There are different situations that I can think of that where grace helped me to better my life. And one of those has to do with my father. And so my father wasn't really around when I was growing up. And there were things that he did that were not good. And I'm going to say this as a disclaimer: just because we are graceful with someone, it doesn't mean we have to accept or tolerate things that they do that we don't want in our lives. It just means that we have let go of the negativity, or trying to let go of the negativity, and offer them grace to then move on. And whether that be with us or them, that's a different story. But grace allows us that capability to do so. So back to my story. So yeah, there were things that I'm was aware of that my father did that weren't great, were things he did wrong, a lot of mistakes. And I, when I learned of his past and different influences that he was under, it helped me to offer grace, and thus that helped release weights that I was carrying towards him and towards our relationship. Again, it doesn't mean that I think it was right. It doesn't mean that I agree with anything, uh, or doesn't make wouldn't have made him less accountable. I mean, he's not alive now, so I can't say it doesn't make him not accountable now. But again, grace doesn't mean those things. It just means that we're being understanding and letting go of the negativity that we're tying to it. And the reason what even made me talk about this situation, I mean, this topic, sorry, is because I was sitting with a group of friends and we were talking. I don't even know how we started talking about grace, but I don't know if you guys have ever heard, um, someone say that, like, this is your mother's first time being your mother, so offer her grace. It's her first go around, and that my other friend said, that can really apply to any relationship, and it's true. Your mother, your father, your lover, your husband, your wife, um, whomever you wish to apply this to, it is their first time being that to you. Even if, like, say your mother was a mother to a sibling you have before you, it's still the first time they're your mother, and you come with your own set of traits and attributes and personality. So we're all learning as we go, and so of course there's going to be tons of mistakes. You have to think of, I think of, like, when I was going through nursing school, I had to be graceful with myself. I've never been a nurse in that capacity, so I had to learn as I go. And yes, now I've been a nurse for years, but there's still situations that I encounter that are new. So I have to offer myself grace. And so again, uh, grace definitely impacts our relationships, impacts us as individuals. And by being graceful, we can really develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and another, and why we should apply grace to many situations and relationships. One concern I think a lot of people have with grace is that it enables bad behavior. And that's, like I said earlier, just because we are graceful doesn't mean we're tolerating BS, and we're um, not holding people accountable and letting them run all over us. And it doesn't mean that. We can still maintain our personal boundaries. We don't need to enable anyone. We can still be forgiving, though. And if we need to move on, still move on and be graceful at the same time. We don't need to fear being taken advantage of or hurt again just because we're being graceful. And I think that's something that I've thought myself too. If I let it go this time, then it's just going to happen again. But it's not that we're letting someone off the hook per se. It's that we're just being understanding. We can still be firm and graceful, where people know that it's not something we wish to tolerate. And if it were to happen again, we would remove ourselves from the situation. That doesn't take away from being graceful. That's just us maintaining a boundary. But even with that, we can be graceful. I understand why you did this or what's going on with this or that. That doesn't mean that I'm going to be maintain a relationship with you the next time, whatever it is. If we can, it's important to, or will be beneficial to, incorporate grace into our daily lives. Some ways that we can do that is to practice mindfulness and meditation, and this helps cultivate empathy and compassion. We can also do that by daily prayer, by engaging in acts of kindness and volunteering to offer generosity and also be understanding. That can also be a way of incorporating grace into our lives. Seeking guidance from those we respect and honor, and trying to gain understanding from others who may have experienced similar things, reflecting on our own experiences at the day's end or the week's end, and or evaluating our relationships. What could I have done better, or how could I have been more graceful to them, or how could I have been more understanding? And by doing this, we really will reap a lot of long-term benefits of being graceful. Um, our relationships can deepen because they are now more empathetic, more compassionate. There's more support, more understanding. That's a big, big thing in relationships. It's one thing to tell someone something and they listen and stuff, but for them to truly understand us is really a major part of growing closer together. Being graceful allows us to be, again, more empathetic, more compassionate, and this will in turn lead us to having a greater sense of connection to others and to ourselves, even. It improves our mental health, as I stated earlier, reduces stress, anxiety, depression. Those are things we all may experience on a small to a large scale at some point. And it also helps us have greater inner peace, greater purpose, when we're living our lives in a way that is forgiving, compassionate, understanding. um, it helps us be happy with ourselves because we feel like we're doing well towards others, and we are. And so grace is definitely a beautiful attribute to extend to others and even to ourselves. Sometimes, there's things that you might not be able to do because of fatigue, because of maybe an illness, maybe a situation that's going on, maybe there was a death in your family. Sorry for the outside noise. Maybe you're dealing with something that's hard and you can't do the things that you usually do. You have to offer yourself grace. You have to be understanding with yourself. Right now, I can't do that, and that's okay. And then you'll get to it when you can. So grace is not just something that we give to others, but it's also something we can give to ourselves. And by giving it to ourselves on a regular basis, we can also then get used to doing so for others. And so I hope you've gained something from this conversation. I always do. As I always say, a lot of what I talk about to you all is to also help me. And I learn every time I do a podcast because from what I research, that what I want to express, it helps me in my own relationships, in my own interactions, in my own work, in my own self-care and self-reflection to now look at my own opportunities to be graceful with myself and others. And so, yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope your day or night continues to go well, or goes well if it hasn't already. And thank you for listening to this episode of Dreamcast.